Houston, heavy runway 26, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, runway 26, heavy good,
Welcome to the Aeropedia Podcast. I'm Ashwin.
And I'm Peter. And today we have Stefaan Ghijs with us. He's founder and CEO of Aeropedia. He is dedicated to revolutionizing private aviation by making it more personal, accessible, and affordable. His journey began at Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. And beyond his role at Fly Aeolus, he also serves as an independent consultant for different organizations like the International Air Transport Association and the World Food Program. So, Ashwin, can you think of a better taxi than the Cirrus SR22?
Wow, I could think of maybe the Mustang, but let's ask Stefan which other taxis there are.
Let's do it.
Stefan, welcome to the Aeropedia Podcast. Very excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So let's start with, why don't you tell us about how you got your start in aviation and a bit about your background and experience in the industry.
First of all, thank you for inviting me. I'm able to join in this podcast. What's my background? Well, I started my aerospace career, so to say, in the University of Delft, where I finished my Master's of Aerospace Engineering in Delft University of Technology, which is close to Amsterdam. I basically did a Master's of Science, which was more geared to air transportation and operation. I was kind of fed up with the mathematics of building aircraft. I believe there was probably kind of a bigger challenge in, let's say, in how to earn money with aircraft instead of building them. We don't say that to Airbus or Boeing, but hey, that's let's say how I moved in that direction. After that, after my graduation with Stock Fokker from let's say the old manufacturing side of the Fokker aircraft, I moved in working with the old university, where I basically started my entrepreneurial career as well as my training career in the aviation industry. I quickly started delivering courses around airline management at university after my graduation, and around airline management topics. The choice of airline management topics around, let's say, revenue management optimization, but also process optimization, was driven by the fact that I had an idea to literally start an air taxi around that time. We're talking about 2006, and setting up that company together with, let's say, delivering trainings allowed me to literally start up with our company. Quite quickly after, let's say, the first trainings and courses I delivered at the University of Delft, I also started working with students in supervising their thesis work with different airlines all around the world. And that gave me a lot of, let's say, knowledge about what challenges and opportunities different airlines around the world were faced with. And I found out that a lot of airlines are literally faced with the same challenges, same issues all around the world. That gave me a lot of information also, which I can get back into, let's say, my entrepreneurial incentives. And quite close afterwards, I also started working with IATA as a trainer. I'm currently delivering trainings with IATA around airline management topics, which is, I would say, less than a part-time job right now, because most of the time right now I'm delivering work, or let's say working full-time in my company, which is Fly Aeolus, where we indeed have set up an air taxi, where we're trying to provide an affordable alternative to private aviation.
Amazing background. Thank you for sharing that. For some of the listeners may not exactly know what an air taxi is. Could you explain what that is, how it's different than an airline? And
yeah, so very good question. In principle, if you look operational wise, we let's say we have the same the same way of how we operate. We fly an aircraft from A to B, which incurs different operational aspects like flight operations, handling, maintenance. We have to check crew rest time slots, etc. So all these kind of aspects are very comparable. At think the major difference lies in, let's say the kind of aircraft you operate, and also the fact that we don't operate on a, let's say, recurrent schedule as airlines do. We fully fly on demand. So when a customer wants to fly from A to B, we basically fly from A to B. Now, the air taxi, in my opinion, because the word is quite well spread used, and there are, let's say, multitude of definitions in let's say, how different companies are using the word air taxi. In our opinion, the air taxi literally tries to provide an alternative, or to provide an alternative transportation methodology towards private aviation or private jets, or let's say the private charters as we know it nowadays. By using different type of aircraft, but also in a different kind of logistical model, we are providing a private aviation alternative which comes at a fraction of a private jet by means of cost. And I think that is the major difference when it comes to, let's say, private jet operators or private jet charters, and so let's say the comparable aspects when it comes to comparing the air taxi model with the airlines.
So the company Fly Aeolus, what happened in 2006? I think you said. What happened in 2006 that you started thinking about the gap in the market, and how did it all come about?
Yeah. Well, it was not that I kind of woke up in the morning and I had this bright, fantastic idea. That's not how it worked. I think it's a process of let's say, dare to say, not even months, but even years of how, let's say, the company came about. Everything started with one of the projects which I had to do in my master's of science at the Delft University of Technology, where I was been requested in a student group to build a business plan, and the business plan had the intrinsic goal to, or should have the intrinsic goal to provide value in the aerospace value chain, so to say. And we're kind of looking, okay, what can we do? What can we make as a business plan which provides a positive business case? It was purely an exercise, and it was around let's say when we did this exercise for this entrepreneurial course in the Masters of Science. It was the time of when the very light jets came in. Was Eclipse, which basically was been set up. The Cessna Mustang as an alternative to the CJ series came up. Honda Jet was literally developing its aircraft around that time, and there were a lot of startups moving around this very light jet concept. As I mentioned just about, the air taxi model is different from the commercial airline business by means of aircraft. So the usage of smaller aircraft to bring smaller passenger sizes or party sizes from A to B was also been seen by, let's say, by the major manufacturer. Hence, they were willing to provide an aircraft which was more affordable to try to fulfill this air taxi idea, which we were just discussing. And I was kind of triggered about these very light jets and also around the business cases which were set up around those very light jets. And initially, the idea was also set up with, let's say, with the idea of very light jet. And let's say as a fleet, as a basis of the fleet in the business case. But then 2008 came about, and literally when I graduated in 2006 until 2008, I started looking into the plan. Never had the real idea, let's say, to literally start, let's say, a real business around this exercise which we did. But it was, let's say, one of my professors, which continuously came by while I was working at the university, was also asking, did you do something with this exercise, which we did when you were still a student. At that time, I was already working for the university. And, gradually I started talking with people, talking with the regulators, talking with the EASA. And as I mentioned just about, 2008 was hit, and we saw that, let's say, we were already talking also with investors, and 2008 credit crisis started off, and we completely had to restart from scratch because we had two investors which were going to back us at that point, but due to the credit crisis, we lost literally those two investors, and we had to basically go back to the design board to literally start from scratch. Hence, we had to reevaluate our whole business model, and that's also, let's say, where we are now. Let's say the redesign at that point came about. We were going to work with overcapacity aircraft, which were already in the market, which were basically standing in the hangars. Aircraft which are, let's say, from different owners, which were willing to have a return on investment on their aircraft. That's how we looked, let's say, at this opportunity to see if we can use this overcapacity into the business model of an air taxi model. That's how we came about, let's say, the business model. It was a gradual step where I literally was soaked into, and literally, step by step, starting up with the business model. And I was very lucky to be backed up by the university at that time, because I still remember that one of my professors around that time, also in between 2006 2008, said, "Why don't you start like you're currently working with us? Why don't we start invoicing you? Let's say that you start sending us your invoice instead of that you're working on let's say traditional wage." And that's how I basically how things move forward.
Well, that's great insight into how start a business happens, right? It's not all of a sudden you think of it and then it's a success. There's ups and downs along the way, and that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. So something you mentioned around the business model, and does your air taxi own aircraft and operate them, or do you operate aircraft that owned by other companies, and what are those aircraft types?
Yeah, so just shed already a light on let's say our fleet just about, and I mentioned the word fractional ownership. Indeed, let's say we don't own the aircraft. I would say that we are a complete virtual airline in this case. We're merely connecting different parties with each other, and through our business model, we are able to have full accessibility to currently around 15 Cirrus SR22s. Which are, let's say, been made available to us by owners, by companies which have such an aircraft and are not operating it enough to have, let's say, a decent operational profitability on the aircraft. Hence, they're looking to generate a return on investment on the aircraft with us. They're assured of good operations of the aircraft, as we only work, of course, with commercial pilot licensed crew, which are fully experienced on the aircraft, are fully checked out, and that's a reason for these owners to work with us and to make their aircraft available to us. If you compare it with, let's say, just renting out the aircraft to private pilot licensed pilots, which might use the aircraft in a different sense. So they're guaranteed of a proper usage, operational usage of the aircraft. Another aspect of let's say, working together with partners which have a Cirrus SR22, because we principal started working only with Cirrus SR22. We have been evolving to also the Piper Meridian in our model. So working only with those two type of aircraft has given us two major advantages. I think one is the fact that we have full flexibility operationally wise. If one of the aircraft is aircraft on ground, AOG, due to technical issues, we're able to quickly switch the aircraft. Our pilots can change quite easily on the different aircraft, and we're let's say, we're also not having issues with different capacity type of aircraft. So we never leave basically passengers, let's say, at the origin if any issues should arise, or if an aircraft is not available for whatever reason. So it gives us that operational standardization and flexibility, but also a second aspect of working together with partners bringing their aircraft in a model is that not all our partners are based in the same let's say region, or let's say their aircraft are not based in the same airport. So we are working with different partners all around Europe, which means that our aircraft, which we are able to use through our partners, are literally based spread out to Europe. Hence, if we have a request coming from Germany, we, for instance, Berlin, we would use, let's say, the aircraft which is based in Berlin. If we have an aircraft, or let's say a request coming from Belgium, we have different aircraft, let's say, based in Belgium, which we could use to basically fly in and to pick up our customer to bring him to the final destination. So that combination allows us to be very flexible and also decrease the cost and make a more affordable air taxi model to our customers, as we don't have to fly in the aircraft from literally everywhere to pick up our customer. On top of that, we don't have the aircraft on the balance sheet. So if the demand is low, we don't have the worry of the fixed cost which needs to be covered. We have let's say our direct operating costs are almost fully variable. Hence, it gives us, let's say, also the safety and the reliability in the lower demand times, like in winter.
Yeah, and not having it on the balance sheet, I'm sure, is a big advantage, right? Yeah. So, talk to us a bit about the network itself. You mentioned that there's different airports. So, are you mainly operating within Europe? And if so, how many countries, how many airports do you have access to, etc.?
Yeah, so we only, let's say, the air taxi model as we operate it right now with the Cirrus and the Piper Meridians are, let's say, solely operating intra-Europe. We have the full freedom to fly within the European Union without any issues. Of course, after, let's say, the Brexit, things have changed a little bit towards England. That's something that we're still working on. But if you look at intra-Europe, we were able to operate around, let's say, 1,200 to 1,600 small airfields, which are literally spread throughout Northwest Europe. If you look at it, I dare to say that we probably use only, let's say, 40 to 50% of those, or let's say, or make it, let's say, would only use 40 to 50% of those airfields, or not necessarily that we fly those 40 to 50%, but we see that most of the demand is based between Germany, France, the Benelux, and the Swiss and Austria region. That's where the core of our demand lies. So we have, of course, around 1,500 airfields which we can use throughout Northwest Europe. But let's say the demand therefore drives down, of course, to not necessarily drive down the airports, but we only use, let's say, or potentially use part of it driven by where the demand is basically based.
That's very interesting and allows you obviously have focus areas of where you have customers that have been built up and interest in that. Could you explain a little bit about how you built your customer base? And how do people find the ability to sign up for a flight on an air taxi?
Yeah, and I think that is the crux of our business model, our business case, so to say. I think we're 100% different here than from the average private jet charter here. We earn 99% of our customers via the internet. We've learned ourselves how to work with Google or search engines and provide content for potential customers of ours or potential leads to try to attract them to our website, hence able to make a calculation, leave their data on our website such that we can connect with them and try to convince them to literally buy our services. So that is to become a member and a fractional owner of one of the aircraft which we have in our fleet. I think that is, let's say, literally the crux of our business, of our business model when it comes to marketing and sales. Traditionally, in the private jet business, which is very comparable, I would say, though, to commercial airlines, is that the private jet business is very dependent on distribution systems or private jet distribution systems. In the commercial airline business, you would have, for instance, Amadeus or Galileo or Sabre as the the important drivers to attract customers to fill up the seats on specific routes. In the private jet business, it works in a very comparable way. We have one let's say major distribution system which is called Avinode. And Avinode is kind of a distribution system connecting potential potential providers or private jet operators with brokers and customers. We don't use this system. We literally work via the internet. So 99% of our customers are direct customers, which is very different than private jet operators.
Wow, very, very interesting. And what about the pricing, right? How do you compare versus the private jet market and even the airline transportation market?
Excuse me. So your question is how do we differ from pricing?
Yeah, I mean, so for an average consumer who's listening to this and who wants to book with you in the future, I'm sure they're wondering, oh, how cheap or how expensive is this option for me in the future?
Yeah. That's a very good question. Let's say we offer a service at a fraction of a private jet service. So if you look at the lowest, let's say, the smallest private jets, the Mustangs, as the Mustang Eclipse, those would come around, let's say, prices of 2,500 euros per flight hour. The series which we put on online come at 700 to 800 euros per flight hour. Which if you would look at a traditional operation, which let's say our flights of 1 hour and a half to 2 hours at max, would bring us at an average order value of around 3,000 euros for a day return. And in that case, 3 passengers can join. If you look at major routes or let's say major business routes, you would see that we come very close to last minute economy class tickets by means of prices. And indeed, we would come at around half of the private jet prices. Of course, where is the catch? That's then the question arises, where is the catch? I think there's 2 aspects here. First of all, we operate smaller single engine aircrafts, once again under a fractional ownership model. So you have to buy a share in the aircraft. That's one. And the fact that it's a small single engine aircraft does not necessarily say that it's less luxurious. But of course, the comfort level is different as a jet. That's quite normal. But what we see is that on those stretches of 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, we see that people feel very okay to travel in single engine aircraft, even with headphones on, without any issue, and they feel very comfortable. So it's not luxurious, but it's comfortable, and I think that is, let's say, the difference.
Well, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, it seems also that these customers also can start their journey closer to where they are and end their journey closer to where they want to be and not have to go through larger hubs. So there's the value there. Yeah,
that is correct. Yeah, so using those 1,600 small destinations or it's different airports throughout Northwest Europe, we're always able to bring you closer to the final destination. We see that traditionally our customers mostly, in most of the cases, depart from more economical hubs or major hubs and then fly into more regional or more rural destinations, as there are indeed no direct destinations or direct routes provided by commercial airlines, or indeed other transportation modalities are just simply not available, or if they're available, there's a lot of stopovers or changes or transfers required to basically get to the final destination. We even get people sometimes so close that they can basically go by foot to their final destination or to the office. And with us also, let's say if you look to the amount of people buying post-transportation, like with taxis or car rental, we see that's lower than traditional private jet operators, because the customer sometimes indeed says to us, Stephen, I'm so close, somebody's picking me up. It's literally a 5-minute drive, so no issue there. So you see that there are specific advantages. And in that case, and that's also, I think we're not selling, let's say, on-demand air travel, we're literally selling time. we're literally giving more time to people and allowing business people, because that's our major market, getting back by the end of the day, just before dinner, so that they can join dinner with their family, so to say.
That's great. That's great. Switching gears to the other side of your business and your relationships with the owners of the aircraft, how have you grown the fleet and partners that have these aircraft that aren't fully utilized and get them signed up to be a partner with you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, that was a fairly difficult thing to arrange. I still remember that I had to outreach different owners to basically convince them to put the aircraft in our model, which felt kind of very strange, I would say, the first call you're doing and literally saying, yeah, you should give your aircraft to us. It's kind of fun. That of course changed throughout the years. The first aircraft is the most difficult one, but then you gradually grow. You get to be known through Europe. I think the major advantage, the major advantage of using one type of aircraft also makes your brand connected with that aircraft in the end. So if you if you talk with people or customers, say about Fly Aeolus, they always kind of connected somehow, somewhat with the Cirrus, the first aircraft with what we started our business model with. So that along the years, where more and more partners literally joined our business model, also changed the way how people were getting connected with us. And instead of now outreaching to people literally come to us asking them themselves whatever it would be fruitful to put them their aircraft in our business model to have a return on investment. Putting their aircraft in our model gives them complete freedom, because it allows them to decide primarily if the aircraft is available for our operations or not. They can still keep on using the aircraft for their own private their own private means. The only kind of disadvantage that we have covered, in our contracts quite detailed level, is that of course they have to agree on more owners, or more fractional owners on their aircraft.
Yeah, very interesting. And just as you say that things gradually come about, you've been around for so long, right? And you've gone through the financial crisis, the COVID crisis as well. I'm sure you've seen different waves of the business flowing through from a demand perspective, from an aircraft acquisition perspective, fractional ownership perspective, etc. So talk to us a bit about that, right? How has the demand changed over these years? What challenges have you faced with the business? And in general, what are the challenges in private aviation?
Yeah. You're saying the right things. We've survived two major crises already, and each crisis is different. Each crisis shows different aspects in how demand is indeed changing, adapting. I think how has demand basically evolved? I think the biggest crisis which we had to survive was the latest one, the Corona crisis, the COVID crisis. That was a major one. Still remember the crisis was literally hitting off, and I think in 1 or 2 days all our flights were cancelled. The phone started ringing, and the emails were literally popping up, and all flights were literally cancelled in 1 to 2 days. And we were kind of, what's happening here? It was never seen, of course. I think the difficulty and the challenge in that crisis was that we didn't have any idea how things would move forward, and there was no light in the end of the tunnel. And it was like each time governments were saying, yeah, we might open the business again, or we might open the ability to travel again, but it's not sure when. And things basically moved forward, and it became summer, and then things, indeed started up again, but then they had to close it again because of the second wave, and I don't know what. And I think that was the biggest challenge, that we didn't have any let's say, any idea of where this was going at in those 2 years of Corona crisis. Then after, let's say, 2022, when the Corona crisis was kind of starting to be finished, the starting of the end, we literally saw an uptake of demand. And a lot of people were saying, but didn't you have a lot of demand equally in Corona? So no, we were dealing with the same challenges commercial airlines were facing with. We couldn't either fly to specific destinations or we were not allowed to fly. And also we saw that people were literally staying at home. I think we were very connected to, let's say, how the commercial airline business was. Private jet businesses had a little bit more demand because there they had, let's say, a lot of people which were basically going to their second houses to basically stay there. But also them, you saw that they were also had lower, let's say, quite lower demand. It's not that let's say we were flying privately, we're not abiding to the same rules, or we didn't have to abide to the same rules commercial airlines are basically faced with. So 2022, the bit after the, let's say, the final, let's say, the end of the crisis, we literally saw a lift off of the business model. A lot of people still scared of basically being grouped together in commercial airlines in big aircraft. Hence, they were looking for alternatives. And let's say our model came up as, let's say, the first step up model before you could enter the private jet model. You hear also that, let's say, I think we're kind of lowering the threshold to get into the private jet business. I think that's what we're also doing. Hence, people were looking for alternatives, and for intra-Europe travel, that was indeed a good, let's say, good alternative. So we saw, let's say, our best year ever in history was 2022, going, let's say, strong towards the beginning of 2023. And now, the middle of 2023, we see some changes taking place. We saw that let's say, we saw things. Well, we saw demand dropping gradually from, let's say, the middle of 2023, September, which continued towards 2024. And I have the feeling that demand is basically getting back to the old figures as it was in 2019, 2018, even 2018, I would say. They call it probably revenge travel after let's say after the Corona crisis. Everybody wants to travel again and wanted to basically do let's say want to take the possibility to get to specific places again without any further issue, and they had saved some money, so they were able to spend it. So that was happening in 2022 and 2023. What's happening now? I feel that probably, let's say, maybe the savings of people's and business are maybe kind of let's say decreased a little bit. But I also have the feeling that it's not only in our business that we see that business is stabilizing, and as we are dependent, of course, on the growth of other industries. If other industries are stabilizing, we see that, of course, the need for travel, of course, is also stabilizing. And I feel, let's say, that I don't know whether it's the recession which is popping up, but I feel, let's say, that there is some. It's not only softness, but there's some challenges ahead, I would say, for a lot of businesses to move forward. And I think to grow again, we first need to basically address these challenges to have decent growth again, and also the requirement to travel again. So I think that's where we're at now.
Yeah, sounds good. So in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next section. So Stefan, this is more of a rapid fire round where we're just trying to understand some of the dynamics behind you, right? And how you've gotten to where you are. So what do you think is one hard skill and one soft skill that's required to succeed in your role?
Let me start by the soft skill, because I think that's probably the most nicest one. I think can also have two.
Yeah, sure.
I think one is let's say patience. I think that's the first one, and with this patience comes also perseverance. Things I'm always saying at home in the evening, things are going so slow, it should be much more fast, and And but yeah, there's only X amount of hours in a day, and of those X amount of hours, you need some sleep and also some time with the family. But yeah, so yeah, patience I think is the first one. Yeah, Rome is not built in one day. The same applies to making a business in aviation. There's so many stakeholders, so many rules to basically abide to, and that has to be juggled in a kind of mix which makes an alternative of a product or service to our customers, which is also interesting for them, and that's literally the difficulty. And I think you also need perseverance to build something different, something interesting for your customers, or to innovate the business. The perseverance is, of course, very much required, as Peter was already saying. Yeah, things go up and down, and you have peaks and you have low moments. And in those peaks and those low moments, you have to kind of persevere to go through the low moments and hope to get quickly to a peak moment, and to try to continue to work on that peak moment, where you need to have the patience then again to literally build on that peak moment. By means of hard skills, well, I'm kind of lucky, I would say, that that I'm a guy. I'm interested in a lot of different stuff. So I'm interested also to let's say, I'm interested, of course, as much as I am interested in the aviation business. I'm also interested in. You're probably going to laugh, but I'm also interested in accounting. But I'm equally interested in IT development or application development, website development. As equally, I'm interested in marketing and sales. How do I make sure that our product comes up number one in Google for specific keywords? How do we make sure that we make that sale? What kind of outbound emails can I make to convince a customer to literally request an offer again with our services, for our services? So I'm kind of interested in a lot of things, which probably makes me not like an expert in, let's say, in all those things, but I have a kind of superficial knowledge in all those things. But having the superficial knowledge of all those things and making the combination allows me to do a lot of stuff in our company ourselves, or guide people to do, or let's say experts to do people in our company, and move forward accordingly.
Yeah. What's your fondest aviation memory?
I started my career in aviation business as a consultant with IATA, and I still remember I was sent out to Madagascar for doing my first airline management course based on a simulation with Air Madagascar in Madagascar, which is southeast of South Africa, an island which is sitting on the east part of South Africa. And that was my first, let's say, what do you call it in decent English? The first time that I was able to travel business class, and able to see what business class was about, which was quite funny because the aircraft there in Madagascar they have quite an old fleet, and if you come into the aircraft, they have still this carpet. At that time, they still had carpet on the walls, and the in-flight entertainment was these big projectors, where you had basically three lights, yellow, green, and red light, which is basically covering two seats, which was standing 3 meters in front of a projector screen, which they literally had to pull down. There you could basically see where we were flying. And if you wanted to have a movie on board, that was possible. You got like a CD-ROM player on your lap. And I still remember that they were passing by with the CD-ROMs, which you could borrow to literally, or the DVDs. I think that was it. Which you could take a DVD to look at a movie. I still remember I was asking to the stewards whatever I could. I don't remember which movie I was willing to look, but I was asking for a specific movie while he was answering my let's say answering my question for that DVD, saying that the DVD was not available because another business passenger was flying, or let's say was using this DVD to see this to check this movie. So I think that's probably my fondest memory about let's say aviation. What was even more funny, by the way, is that I got the menu for let's say for dinner, and I thought to ask, let's say, the local dish of Madagascar. While the steward was kind of saying, "Are you sure you want to choose that?" I wouldn't pick that one. That's not really good. So, and 2 weeks later, I was flying once again business, but not with Air Madagascar, but then with Lufthansa, which was a completely different experience. So the first 2 weeks of my career as a consultant with IATA, I kind of had the idea that the business class of Air Madagascar was the standard. But of course, with Lufthansa, I got a completely different impression.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard about the CD picking. That's a very interesting experience to go through. Yeah, that's a great example. Okay, transitioning to the next category. Peter, what is that one?
All right, Stefan, this is your trivia round. So we ask each of our guests 5 questions around the aviation ecosystem. So we'll see how we do. And if nothing else, it's educational for our listeners and us included. So are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, here's your first question. It's aircraft equipment. Can you identify the purpose of the equipment that's shown here? And for those that are listening in and not seeing, there's a jet engine with a large nozzle coming out the bottom of it. And then there's a front landing gear that has a large plate or panel attached to it, right behind the tires.
Whoa. I'm an aerospace engineer. I should know this kind of stuff, but
it is not standard.
No, indeed, it isn't. The first thing I would kind of say is kind of a pitot system or something, or let's say with the engine, but that's probably not the case. Whereas the second with the landing gear looks like a kind of looks very comparable. What you have with private jets are these kind of automatic pushback systems, which you electronically push back your aircraft.
Yeah. No, but that's a good guess, but it's wrong. I apologize.
No,
but what it is, it's a gravel kit. So the nozzle under the engine is actually shoots air out in front of the engine to push for an unimproved runway. It pushes the gravel and the other obstructions away from the engine as it sucks in the air. And then the plate behind the nose gear is actually to keep from gravel and other obstructions from being kicked up by the nose gear and then being ingested into the engine. So Ashwin, I think that the only last operating version of the 737-200 with the gravel kit is actually in Canada. So Nolan Air operates it today. So.
Oh, interesting.
All right. Next question, airports. So can you identify this unique and challenging airport? It sits at an elevation of over 9,000 feet or close to 3,000 meters. And the 1,700 foot or 527 meter runway can only be used in one direction. And based on the picture here, there's a big chasm at the end of the runway, which is why you can only use it in one direction.
My first guess would be like, but it doesn't look like France. It's like Courchevel. It also has an inclination.
Yes.
But let's say if I look to the left part of the runway, it doesn't look at all to France. I don't remember the name, but I think it's an airport in Asia somewhere.
That is true. So we'll give you partial credit for this one. It's in Nepal. So it is Lhasa. Oh, Lukla. I'm sorry, not Lhasa. That's in Tibet. Lukla Airport in Nepal. This airport, and actually, yeah, you can only use the runway in one direction. There's a slope to it. Very challenging airport. It's the staging point for many people who trek up to Mount Everest. So the gateway to Mount Everest. All right. Next question. Aircraft. This is the largest certified aircraft to be able to operate at London City Airport that has a unique steep approach at 5.5 degrees. Can you name the aircraft type? The largest.
Is that an Embraer E190 or something?
Ooh, I'll give you 90% credit. It is an E195 E2. That's very good. Yes. All right.
You see that I'm coming from a private jet business, not from the let's say not
the
from
airline.
precisely.
I wonder if they ever do a lineage version of the E2, then maybe it will be the biggest business jet. All right. Next question. Routes and air service. This is another airline one that's going to challenge. Can you name one of the 4 non-South American airlines that flies between Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires?
The non-South American airlines.
Yes. And there was one European, will be a hint.
Yeah, my first guess would be Iberia.
Okay.
Due to the background. Or TAP.
Those are 2 good guesses. Unfortunately, both incorrect.
Oh dear.
So it is from a country that you serve, that we mentioned this episode. Swiss is one of them.
Oh really?
Ashwin, do you care to guess another one? Might be from your backyard.
Really? Air Canada? Oh.
Yes, that is another one.
I will also say there should be one American carrier probably doing this as well.
That's what I thought too when I looked it up, but in fact there isn't.
There isn't? Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I would say, Air Canada would be my guess. Swiss, probably another European airline then, but it's hard to say which one.
So it's actually Turkish is another one, and then Ethiopian is the 4th carrier that flies between Sao Paulo and Buenos Aires. So the 2 cities are so close that they end up just doing an extension of their flights from across.
Are they able to pick up passengers in one of those cities and bring it also to the other city, or is it just kind of a tag on?
It's just a tag on, so they don't have 5th freedom rights. Yep. No, that's a good question. Excellent question. And then the 2 South American carriers that fly the route are LATAM and Flybondi. So, all right. Our last question. This is the only airline to select the Rolls-Royce RB211 engine option on the 767-300. And there's a hint here in that Rolls-Royce, and it's a European airline.
What do you call it? Like in this game? Can I make a phone call?
You can ask Ashwin. He's your only contact. So Ashwin, Rolls-Royce is a hint. Think about Rolls-Royce, and then think about a European carrier.
My guess would be British Airways.
Yeah.
That is correct.
It was a guess. Yeah, it was a guess.
So British Airways is the only airline that took the RB211 option on the 767. So Boeing had to make some adjustments because it's a heavier engine than the GE. So here's a picture of the GE engine as well. So, well, very good. Well, this was an educational trivia session. I dug a little bit deeper, probably. Sometimes I do that, Stefan, so I apologize.
No worries.
But great job.
Well, Stefan, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And we've learned so much about private aviation today. So thanks for making the time.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for taking the time to have those questions, fantastic questions.
Yeah, thanks, and good luck with Fly Aeolus, and we're looking forward to more updates and eventually one day flying with you when we're in Europe next time.
Yeah, most welcome. Get in touch, and wherever you want to fly, we'll make sure you get there. We'll pick you up. We will pick you up where you want, and we'll fly you in Europe where you want to go.
Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us this week. Send us any feedback, trivia ideas, or future topics you may have to our email at aeropedia.podcast@gmail.com. See you on the next leg of our journey.
Bye for now.
Temperature any heavy, contact departure 119.2, good night.
49.3, speed at 290 heavy.